A very good evening and a very warm welcome to all of you. I'm Gajen Ruman from Leverage IELTS, and this session is brought to you by Leverage Edu. First of all, thank you for joining us today for our webinar on IELTS and TOEFL, which is better. So we'll discuss the differences between both the types of tests, and at the end, I'm sure you will have enough information to make the informed decision as in which test is better for you. So let's begin. I'm sure that we all know that English language proficiency is vital requirement for all the non-native speakers who are willing to pursue higher education or looking for career opportunities in English speaking countries. And these two tests, IELTS and TOEFL, these are globally recognized assessments which measures these two tests. They measure individuals' language skills in various areas. So, if we have a proper and detailed understanding between the differences between these two tests, then it will also help you make an informed decision about which one is best fit for your goals and your aspirations. Now, if we talk about the IELTS test is developed by British Council, IDP Education, and Cambridge Assessment Center, and it has been widely accepted by universities, educational institutions, and employers worldwide. It is also known for its rigorous assessment for language proficiency across four sections. These four sections are listening, reading, writing, and speaking. This IELTS test also offers two types of tests. Basically, there is one of them is academic module, and the other one is general module. So the academic module of the IELTS test, it is designed for those who are planning to study at the undergraduate or postgraduate level. And the general training module, on the other hand, it focuses on language skills which are needed for work or immigration purposes. On the other hand, if we talk about TOEFL, so TOEFL is administered by ETS, Educational Testing Service, and it is designed specifically for non-native speakers who wish to pursue higher education or who are looking for professional opportunities in an English-speaking country. But yeah, it's we have to keep in mind that TOEFL scores are not accepted by Canada. Other than that, these TOEFL scores are accepted by all the countries, just like IELTS test, all the English-speaking countries. The TOEFL also assesses language skills across four sections, which are reading, listening, speaking, and writing. And it is also offered in two formats. One of them is TOEFL IBT, which is internet based TOEFL, and the other one is TOEFL PBT, that is paper based TOEFL. But TOEFL IBT format is generally considered to be more popular and it is also more widely available. Now, throughout this webinar, we'll be delving into the nuances of IELTS and TOEFL test. We'll explore different factors like structure, content, scoring systems, test duration, the availability of the test, what's the purpose of the test, and the recognition. These are all the factors that we'll try to cover today. And by gaining a comprehensive understanding of these factors, you will also be able to make an informed decision as to which test suits you best. Now, let's proceed with our comparison of IELTS and TOEFL test. So, since I have already provided you with an overview of IELTS and TOEFL exam, let's dive deeper into the details. So, to begin with, let me introduce first again these two exams. So IELTS test we said that it is an internationally recognized test which assesses English language proficiency for all the non-native speakers. While both the tests they serve a similar purpose, but there are notable differences in their format, content, and scoring. So we are going to explore these differences to help you choose the test that aligns with your goals. So let me first tell you about exam structure. If we talk about both the IELTS and TOEFL tests, their exam structures also they vary significantly. First, the IELTS test, it is divided into four sections: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. The listening section of IELTS consists of four audio recordings. Two of them are going to be monologues, and two of them are going to have discussions. And you will answer a series of questions based on what you hear simultaneously as you listen to the audio track. Reading section of IELTS, it includes three passages from academic sources. That's for academic IELTS, and five passages for general training. And the length of the passages will be short. And you will have to answer comprehension questions. If we talk about writing section requires you to complete two tasks, such as describing a chart, writing a report on a line graph or a pie chart. And the second task is going to be about writing an essay on the topic, which will be given to you. Lastly, if we talk about speaking section, so the speaking section of TOEFL, it involves a face-to-face conversation with an examiner where you will be discussing a range of topics, and the speaking test would last for about 11 to 14 minutes. On the other hand, if we talk about, let's say, TOEFL test, so it is also composed of four sections: listening, reading, speaking, and writing, and they are all taken on the same day. Unlike IELTS, for which the speaking section could either be taken on the same day or a few days before or after the test date. But then listening, reading, and writing section of IELTS, they are taken on the same day. Now, coming back to TOEFL, the reading section, it's going to present you with some academic passages, and you will be answering some questions which will demonstrate your comprehension. Uh, the listening section will have again some lectures and some conversations, and these lectures and conversations, they are going to be done in academic setting. The speaking section also requires you to express your thoughts on familiar topics, and you will also be responding to short conversations. But then the speaking section of TOEFL test, that's not going to be in person with an examiner. You will be speaking into the computer with a microphone. Lastly, if I talk about writing section, so writing section includes two tasks where you will have to summarize information based on the lecture that you'll be listening to and a passage that you will read. So the writing and speaking section of TOEFL includes questions which are integrated questions. Some of them are integrated questions. Integrated means that it does not solely include just writing or speaking. They would include listening as well as reading. And yeah, I almost forgot that on our YouTube channel, Leverage IELTS, you can find more of these type of information. You can just go on YouTube and search Leverage IELTS, subscribe by clicking on the bell icon, and you will receive regular updates regarding IELTS and TOEFL preparation. Now, let's talk about the content of these two tests. So, the IELTS and TOEFL tests, they also differ in their approach. For example, IELTS focuses on variety of accents, and it primarily uses British English. For example, in the listening section of IELTS, you are going to listen to a range of accents, including British, American, Australian, and many more. In the reading section, you will encounter passages from various sources, such as books, newspapers, journals, and the emphasis will be on academic content. The writing section of IELTS, it requires you to express your thoughts clearly and coherently in a formal language. In the speaking section, we discussed that you're going to have a discussion with an examiner, and it's going to be face to face, and he'll be discussing both personal and abstract topics. On the other hand, if we talk about TOEFL, so TOEFL predominantly it uses North American English. The listening section, it features lectures and conversation, typically, again, which are heard in university settings, academic. The reading section, it presents passages from textbooks and articles that you might encounter again in a university setting. The writing section, it requires you to complete two tasks. We have discussed that. And the responses that you'll be writing, they're going to be based on what you have read or listened to. So they are going to include some integrated tasks as well, and you will be expressing your opinions there. And mainly you're supposed to summarize information after listening, reading, and then looking at the prompt. Now if we move to the scoring part of it, the scoring criteria is also set by it also set the like IELTS and TOEFL test exams, these two tests apart. For example, if we talk about IELTS test uses a band scale from 0 to 9, and each section it receives a separate score. So your overall score is going to be the average of all the four sections. Now, it's important to note that reading and listening modules of IELTS, they have quantitative assessment, which is very objective, whereas writing and speaking modules, they have qualitative assessment. So they have subjective parameters on the basis of which your band score is decided. And the final overall band score will be the average of all the four separate scores. The band score, they also correspond to different levels of proficiency. For example, if somebody gets a band 9, the band 9 indicates that the candidate is an expert user. If somebody gets a band 0, so that would indicate that the candidate is a non-user of English. So remember that these band scores, they correspond to different levels of proficiency. And also it's important to note that there is no passing or failing score in IELTS test. It's important to remember that different institutions may have different requirements, score requirements for admissions and employment. Generally speaking, good band score is somewhere about 6 or 6.5 across all the four sections, which is mostly accepted by most of the universities. But then again, as I said, some universities may have specific requirements. So it's important that you do your own research and then decide what's the band score that you should be aiming for. On the other hand, if we talk about TOEFL, so TOEFL uses a scoring scale from 0 to 120, and each section receives a score out of 30. And then your overall, the scores are then summed up to give you an overall score. The TOEFL score also is valid for 2 years. By the way, IELTS score is also valid for 2 years, so there is no difference in the validity of these two tests. The reading and listening sections, they are scored by computer. If we talk about TOEFL, the reading and listening sections, they are scored by a computer, and the speaking and writing sections, they are scored by a combination of an automated AI scoring and some highly talented human raters. On the other hand, if we talk about IELTS, so the scoring will be done again by human raters. So the writing and speaking sections, they are subjectively assessed by examiners. And then the listening and reading sections, they are also objectively assessed by examiners. If we talk about now the test duration and availability, so time management is very crucial component for both the tests. If we talk about IELTS test, it's going to take about 2 hours and 45 minutes. The listening section, reading and writing, these three sections, they're completed on the same day. For reading, you get 60 minutes. For writing, you get 60 minutes. For listening, you get only 30 minutes and 10 minutes extra time if you're going for pen and paper based test for transferring the answers. Speaking section, it is scheduled on a different day, and the duration of speaking test could range from 11 to 14 minutes. Whereas if we talk about TOEFL test, so the TOEFL test would last for about 3 hours and 30 minutes. The reading section, it takes about 54 to 72 minutes. The listening section, it takes about 41 to 55 minutes. Now you might be wondering time, why this variable time. So it's important to note that the TOEFL IBT, it includes unscored experimental reading and listening questions. So in one of these modules, you might get an unscored experimental section as well. But again, you will not be able to identify which one is that. And that's why we have variable timing for listening and reading. Writing section, it takes about 50 minutes. And the speaking section of TOEFL test, that will be completed within 17 minutes. So I hope you have understood about the time duration of both the tests. Now let's talk about the purpose and recognition of these two tests. So it's important to consider the purpose and recognition of these two tests because IELTS, it is widely accepted for academic purposes such as university admissions, especially in UK, Australia, Canada, and US. Many universities in these countries, they require IELTS score for admission, and some professional organizations as well, they recognize IELTS score for certification or licensing purposes. Additionally, IELTS is also recognized by immigration authorities in many English speaking countries. The TOEFL test, on the other hand, is often required for admission in most countries and is accepted by many universities globally, like IELTS, except Canada. And it is also commonly used for academic purposes, such as university admissions, scholarships, and English language programs. Similar to IELTS, TOEFL is also recognized by immigration authorities in certain countries. So it's important to research the specific requirements for your target country, your target destinations and institutions, and then consider which test is preferred or required for your desired academic or professional path. Now, speaking of the test preparation, now preparation plays a very crucial role in achieving a high score. Uh, if To be honest, developing a study plan or seeking guidance from a reputable test preparation resources or mentors, it can help you significantly enhance your performance in both the tests. So for the IELTS test, just some general tips. Familiarize yourself with the test format first and practice as many sample questions and mock tests as possible of the past years. You also would need to work upon your time management skills because each section is very strictly timed. Additionally, it's important that you expose yourself to variety of English materials such as listen to podcasts, read widely academic articles, books. This will help you prepare not only for reading and listening modules, but it will also enhance your score in other two modules. Now, if we talk about TOEFL practice, so for the TOEFL test, practice with official sample tests. This will help you become more familiar with the question types and the format of the test, and try to simulate test conditions by timing yourself during your practice sessions. Also, try to focus on improving your academic English skills, such as note taking, summarizing information, and expressing your ideas coherently in writing and speaking tasks. There are a lot of online resources. You can utilize online resources on the website, ETS official website. There are study guides and practice materials designed for TOEFL to enhance your preparation, and you can find it easily on the website. Now, if we compare the difficulty level of these two tests, TOEFL and IELTS, so generally speaking, we can say that TOEFL is a little easier than IELTS, but then difficulty level of each exam, it varies depending on an individual's language background, their familiarity with different English accents, and also their personal strengths and weaknesses. So when we talk about difficulty level, both tests they present their unique challenges. The IELTS, it is known for its British English orientation, which means that test takers will encounter a range of accents, vocabulary, and spelling conventions commonly found in British English speaking countries. But it's also important to note that the spellings that you will write for your answers, both American and British, they are accepted by IELTS. It also requires test takers to adapt to a variety of question types across four sections. So in listening, reading, writing, and speaking, there are a variety of question types that we'll need to be more familiar with. On the other hand, TOEFL is designed primarily for North American English speakers, and it also has a very distinct American English focus, unlike IELTS. It places significant emphasis on academic English skills, especially in reading and listening modules. Uh, Additionally, the TOEFL speaking section, it requires the test takers to speak into a microphone, unlike IELTS test that we discussed. In IELTS, you will have to be present physically and talk to an examiner for 11 to 14 minutes. But in TOEFL test, you will be speaking into a microphone and you will communicate your responses effectively within the time frame that will be given to you. But then again, overall, we can say that TOEFL is a little easier than IELTS test. Now, when it comes to deciding between which test we should choose, so IELTS and TOEFL, both the tests, they have their own different purposes, their recognition, their availability. So we have, having seen all of these factors that we discussed today, I'm sure you would be better able to make an informed decision now. But consider your educational and professional goals first. Decide your target institutions, your personal preferences, research the requirements of the organization and universities, and then you plan and apply to select the test that aligns with your criteria, with their criteria. It's also advisable that you take as many practice tests as possible and consult with the experts in the field who can assess your strengths and weaknesses in each of these formats and then guide you accordingly to make an informed decision. Now, we have covered the key differences between the IELTS and TOEFL test, but if any one of you have uh, more questions, I would be happy to address any queries you might have. So kindly share them in the chat if there is anything you would like to ask. All right, I'm seeing no questions. So thank you all for being here in today's session. I hope now you have a more clearer understanding of the IELTS and TOEFL test. So you can make the informed decision now with considering these factors that we have discussed. Don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel, Leverage IELTS, for more content like this. And if you need more information on this, you can contact us on our toll-free number 1800 572130. I'm sharing it in the chat. You can find it here. All right. Thank you so much. Have a good day.